Hello and welcome back to my turret tutorials. I've had a couple of requests for setting the turrets up like a turret defense system or anything like that, where if multiple units cross within a range, we can auto target and figure that stuff out. So what I've got set up now is three target actors that are all based off of a parent, and what we can do is we can move them within a range which is shown by the overlap sphere that we've got, and you can see that the turret will aim at one of them, and if we remove it out it will then aim at another one. We move that one out, it'll aim at another one, and so on and so forth. So if its current target leaves its range, it will search for another one. If it can't find any, it will return back to its base. I also added in just some angle clamping so that it won't, as an example, go through the ground. So I've got it at the moment, I only can aim 10 degrees down and 45 degrees up. So that's the final product of this tutorial. So let's get started, shall we? I will delete all of this, and I've made a new folder and I copied the assets from the last tutorial, so nothing has changed in these assets. First thing we do is we go into edit and project settings, and then we go down to the collision. So I've set two new object channels, one is target and one is turret, and I've set them both to ignore, so everything by default will ignore them, and that way we don't have things overlapping and getting overlap events that we don't specifically want. Alright, so first thing we do is we go into our tutorial turret, and we can add in an collision sphere. I'll just name it overlap detection. Now for the example, I'll set it as 1024 in the sphere radius, and I will also change the collision preset to custom. We want it to query only, we don't want physics. And then we set this as our turret. We can set all of the collision responses to ignore, and then the only one we need to change is to overlap target. And we can turn, in the rendering, we can turn off hidden in game and compile, and then there's our visible overlap sphere. So what we can do now, we are essentially going to delete our event begin play completely and our event tick. The reason why we're getting rid of the tick is we're going to have the aim at target and reset aim events only trigger when there's an overlap. That way we won't have turrets sitting there ticking away trying to find targets while there's nothing nearby. It's a performance thing. I tested the difference between having them all on event tick and having them all with this new setup, and when there was a difference between having hundreds of turrets compared to thousands of turrets before the frame rate got bad. So we are going to do it this way, and we'll go from there. So first thing I'll do is we need to create a new variable, and I will set it as, or name it as targets in range. And what we want to set it as is our target blueprint. So it was just called target in the previous tutorial. I've got it as multi-tutorial target, so yours will probably just say target or whatever you named it. Mine is multi-tutorial target. And then we click this little icon next to the variable type and change it to this box, the grid. The grid is an array, and an array is a list of whatever it is. So if it was floats, it would be a list of floats, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you wanted to have it. So this is a list of target actors, and that will hopefully make more sense coming up. So what we want to do is create a new custom event and call it select target. So what we want to do is we want to get our targets in range, get a is valid index and a branch, and connect them up. Is valid index, what it does is it checks the 0 index, so arrays and everything start with 0, not 1, which is something you'll everything in Blueprint works with. So it checks the first index, which is 0, checks if it's actually in there, if is there a target within range, and then we've got true and false from there. So then what we do is get last index, which is if we had 5 actors, 5 targets within the range of our turret, the last index would be index 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 actors. And then we will get a random integer in range, set this as the max. Once again, if we have 5 actors, this picks somewhere between 0 and the last index, which is 4, so we've got 5 actors to pick from. And then we get a copy of that actor. So this is set up to get a random actor out of all of the ones that are within range. We set it as the target, and then we can then begin to aim at the target. So what I did was I just cut and pasted those functions that we had that were at the end of the old tick. You can just retype them back in. So aim at target. If then what we want to do is when we go to select a target, if there are no targets, so if the 0 index is not valid, we want to then reset the aim. So I will comment that as select target. So what we want to do after that is we want to set up our overlap detection. So we can grab, you click on the sphere collision that we made, go add event, or right click, go add event, begin overlap, right click, add event, end overlap. And then we can set them up the way we want them. So what we do is on overlap, drag out from the other actor, and we cast to our target. So for me, it's the multi-tutorial target. For you guys, it'd be the original target or whatever you named it. And then we get our targets in range, drag out and type add. So then we get add. And if what the cast does is it checks if the overlapped actor is our target. So if anything else happens to overlap and it goes, oh, it'll check and go, oh well, is this a target? If it's not a target, don't do anything else, which is where the cast failed comes out. So what we do is we drag off of our target casting and add it. So when a target overlaps that sphere collision, overlaps this big old sphere, check to see if it is a target. If it is a target, add it to the targets in range list. Then what we want to do is see if we already have a target. So is our current target, I might actually just rename this to current target, is our current target valid? So is valid, and if it is valid, we do nothing. So if a target enters into turret range and we already have a target, we don't want to do anything. We want to continue looking at and firing at our existing target. But if we do not have a target, so if it is not valid, then we want to run that event that we made above, the select target. So again, if a target overlaps, or if any actor overlaps, check to see if it's a target. If it is a target, add it into that range, into our array of all targets. If we already have a target, continue doing everything we're already doing, don't change. If we don't already have a target, then we run the event to select a target. This just double checks that nothing's changed in between here and here. So we double make sure, yes, there is something in there. We grab a random actor from that list. So if there is only one actor, it will just go random between 0 and 0, which is 0. Grab that. So we get that actor, set it as a target, begin aiming at the target. If we want to remove an actor from our in range list once it's out of range, we do the same cast. So click out from other actor, cast to our target, so multi-tutorial target, and then what we do is instead of just going remove, we will remove. So we go drag off of turrets in range, remove item. So we will remove that item. So we drag off of the cast to remove that actor from our turrets in range list. So when it ends overlapping, so when it leaves the range, it will no longer be counted as being in range. But what we want to do is, just as a precaution, is we drag out from turrets in range and we go contains item. And then we drag from our cast to our target and add it to the contains, and then we set up a branch and we add it to the branch. So what that does is it's just an extra check so that we don't get any sort of redundancy or anything like that where something ends overlapping and for whatever reason it's not in the target in range, for whatever reason, it just double checks to make sure that it's in there, so it doesn't continue trying to run code without, and it'll be trying to find something that doesn't exist in this, and you get errors and all sorts. So that there is just a check. It's just a safeguard, really. So then what we do is we drag off of our cast and we check. So we go equals, and we check to see, we drag out our current target, we check to see if the target that has left the range, is it the one that we are currently aiming at? So we put in a branch and we check to see that. Is it the one we're currently aiming at? If it is, we can actually delete or move that for now. So has our current target, the one we're aiming at, has it left our range? If it has left our range, we want to set our current target as nothing. So our current target has left our range. It is now empty, no longer valid. We do not have a current target, and then we want to run that select target. So what the select target will do at this point is we go, we're not aiming at anything. Let's see if there's anything in the list. Is there anything in the list? Yes. If there is, get one of the remaining actors at random and then aim at it. If there is nothing, so if our current target has left and is now empty and there are no other actors, reset and look back at whatever you were looking at before, the default rotation. Cool. So I will put a comment as overlap detection. Alright, so now here comes the fun part. So I'm going to drag these away because we don't actually need the check target distance anymore, because the overlap does that now. We do still need to get the current target's location, so we will still need this, but we probably don't need it to be commented anymore. So let's get started on the aim at target, shall we? So now that we're not doing this on tick anymore, we will need what's called a gate. And what a gate does, it essentially works like a gate does. So we'll go gate. You can open and close the gate. If the gate's open, anything that goes in the enter comes out the exit. If it's closed, when you try and enter, nothing happens. So essentially works as a gate. So what we want is when we aim at target, we'll change this to begin aim. So when we begin aiming, what we want to do is add in a sequence. So the sequence, the way that works is sequence will run the first one, run the second one, and if we have any more, run the third, run the fourth, in order. So what we want to do is when we first begin to aim, we want to open the gate, then enter into the gate. So once we have entered into the gate, just as another precaution, we want to check if our target is valid. If our target is valid, we want to continue our aiming. Now, this will fire once. What we want to do is get it to repeat multiple times. And one thing I forgot to do is we need to put in the target location. So enter the gate. Is current target valid? So do we have a target? If we do have a target, let's get our target's location. Then we aim, because if we don't have the target location, we can't aim at the target if we don't have its location. Now what we need to do is make this repeat, so we will need 2 more custom events. So add custom event, add custom event. One will be called cancel aim, and one will be called continue aim. So the continue aim can go up here, the cancel aim can go down here. So cancelling the aim, all we do is close, so it will no longer continue aiming. Then what we want to do is check if our current target is valid from the continue aim, and set that to enter. So while the gate is open, our continue aim will run through. The begin aim only fires initially to get the gate open and running, and then while it's open and running, we continue aim. But if our current target is not valid, oh sorry, I've got that plugged into the wrong spot. If it is valid, we enter. If it is not valid, we cancel aim. So, and while we're at this, we'll just quickly go down to the reset aim. So we'll need to do the similar thing. We'll go begin reset, add in 2 more custom events. We want continue reset and cancel reset, and we'll set these up later. What we need now is to go back up to our aim at target. So we go to continue aiming. Our current target is no longer valid, we do not have a target. We cancel the aim and then begin resetting back to our default pose. Same thing here, so we check if it's valid. If it is not valid, do the same thing. We want to cancel the aiming and begin resetting. We could probably have that set like that. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so this still only fires once. It will begin to aim, go through, check to see if our current target's valid. If it is, get our location, and then start the interp. So what we need is a couple final nodes. So we drag out from the second set rotation, set a delay. The delay we drag out, you can set it to whatever you want, but I set it to delta world seconds, which essentially makes it act like a tick. So delta world seconds will make it work on it. I don't 100% fully understand how delta world seconds works. All I know is it essentially makes it work like a tick, and makes it work regardless of your frame rate, I believe. So we set the delay, delta world seconds, drag out, and go type in continue aim. Now what will happen is we fire the begin aim. So we'll just go back to the beginning. So actor will overlap our detection sphere, our thing that makes us our range detection apparent, to put it simply. Check to see if it's a target blueprint. If it is, add it to our targets in range. If we already have a target that we are aiming at, do nothing. If we don't have a target that we're aiming at, select target. So we double check that there is something in there that we can aim at. Get one of them, set it as the current target, and then we begin aim. So we fire the begin aim once, we open the gate, then we enter the gate. Just in case anything's happened in between, it's the target's died, blown up, whatever, or left, or happened to leave range in that the frame it takes to do this calculation. If that has happened, if it's no longer there, we cancel aim and we begin resetting back. But if it's still valid, if our target is still there, get its location, then run our aim at set rotation, delay for a tick, continue aiming. So then we go back to here and run that check again. Is the target still valid? If the target's still valid, go through. So it makes its way through, and it'll do that as if, in the same essence as if it was on tick. But the good thing about this is if the target dies, whatever, it'll cancel, goes to cancel, closes, and then it stops. It, unlike tick, it won't be running this 24/7. It will only run this when it knows it has a target, which is much better for performance. So now that we've got the aim at target set up, let's go and set up our reset target. So I'll start down the end here. We will add that delay, so a delay of delta world seconds, and then continue reset. So on our begin reset, we get that sequence. And we draw out the gate. So the first sequence opens, the second sequence enters. Otherwise, it will try and enter into a closed gate, and that will be the end of it. Nothing will happen. So what we need to do is, again, check if our if our target is valid, because this check stops both of these running at the same time. I detected this as an issue in my testing, where a target entered, then left, so it triggered the aim at target, then triggered the reset aim, but then while it was resetting, the target entered again. There was no way out for this. The only way it would go out is if it fully reset, but while it was trying to reset, if it entered back in, it would start aiming again, and the two were firing at the same time, and essentially nothing was happening because they were fighting against each other. So we check to see if the target has become valid again. So if a new target has been found, we want to cancel our reset. We stop resetting and we start aiming again. The next thing we want to do is set a branch. Now the branch, what we want to do is we need to check to see if these both are equal to 0, 0, 0, which is their default flat position, this position here. Because if they are both flat, we can stop running this to save performance. So we want to drag out from the boolean and go and, type in and get an and boolean. So if the platform mesh's rotation is set to 0 and the cannon mesh's rotation is set to 0, we'll drag up and add that. If it is set to 0, so it has reset back to 0, we cancel reset. If it has not gone back to reset yet, we continue resetting back to 0. Now the float in here is an error tolerance, so 0.00001 means that it essentially has to be perfectly flat, set back to 0, dead on. If you want, you can change that number, give it a little bit of leeway, but this works as it is. So we want to, now that we've got the that looks like it, we've got the base node set up, we can hook in the continue reset to the enter, and we cancel reset into close. Now the only other thing we need to do is go into our tutorial target, go to that, and in its go to the mesh. So inside our target blueprint we go to this sphere mesh that we have, or whatever you guys have. We set a custom collision. We only, for this sake, want it as query, but you can have physics collision as well, but we're just going to go query. Going to set it as the target in the object type. So the target is the custom collision we set up. Set everything to ignore, and then overlap turret. So this target overlaps the turret, and the turret detection overlaps the target. That allows the overlap detection to work. So that's essentially it. So I'll give it a test. So it overlaps in, starts aiming, and overlaps out. Cool. What I will do, I'll continue this on, but because for now it still aims into the ground. That is a simple change. In the aim at target area, where we set the relative rotation of the cannon mesh, so this part of the mesh, all we need to do is where we have the rinterp constant, just let me make some room here. Where we have this rinterp to constant for the cannon mesh, we want to drag out from the rotator, for the interp, and break our rotator, and drag out from the X and make a rotator. Hook up the yaw, because all we need to worry about is the pitch. So for the pitch, we want to clamp angle, and then hook that clamp up to the pitch. So we break the rotator, the roll and the yaw stay the same, but the pitch we clamp. So I set it to -10 for the minimum and 45 for the maximum, and that allows the restriction of the aiming, so it won't go through the ground anymore. You can set it to whatever you want, whatever works for you, but that's how you clamp it so that it cannot go beyond rotate in on itself. Cool. Last thing we want to do is, in the YouTube comments, someone asked how to have multiple targets of different types entering and leaving, and it to still be able to set all that up. So what we want to do is we want to use this tutorial target actor as our parent. So I'm going to rename with the suffix parent, and I'll delete it from the scene. What we want to do then, so this is our parent, we want to right click on it and create a child, and I'll just name this child 1. So multi-tutorial target child 1. So essentially what a child is it's the same blueprint, uses the same settings, the same event graph and everything like that, but you can change parts of it if you wish. So if our parent had something in the begin play, like, you know, print hello, we can have the child do the same thing by having the parent begin play, and you do that by right clicking on the begin play or the begin overlap or any event and go add call to parent function, and then you just hook them up. But if we didn't have this and we put in a different print that says hello 2, it would run that and overwrite the parents. This is a good way to have multiple enemies, vehicles, units, things that use the same logic, but you want to change things. You can also change variable values and all those kinds of things while keeping the same basic structure. So the way this helps is because we have the turret looking for what is now named our tutorial target parent. When it checks for the parent, it also checks for any children. So if a child of our parent overlaps, it will still run the same way as if the parent overlapped. So it will add it into the targets in range, be able to add it as a target, and that will allow us to have multiple enemies running off of the same parent. So our child 1 I'm going to drag out and keep as green. I will go to the parent, right click, create child. I will name this child 2, and I will drag that out. And then I will go back again to the parent, right click, create child, and I will name this child 3. Now see, they all look the same at the moment, but what I will do is I will open up child 1, 2, and 3. So what happens sometimes is when you open a child, it will come up with this and say this is a data only blueprint, so only the default values are shown. What you want to do is go open full blueprint editor, and then that gives you the event graph, the construction script, and the viewport. So what we want to do for these 3 children is let's just set one as a cube. That's orange, and set one as a cylinder, that is silver, and we'll still keep the green one. So there we go. Now these could be, you know, different soldiers, different tanks, whatever, but they are still considered to be the same blueprint as the parent. So the turret will be able to pick all 3 of these up and add it into its list. So what I will do is we'll go play, and I'll drag all 3 of these in, and you can see it has already started aiming at the first one that overlapped. So then I will open this up and we'll go tutorial, check the debugging. So we've only got the one turret enabled at the moment. So this one turret, I'll see if I can do something about this. Cool. So you can see it is aiming at the target. hence that line there. So this is the target. You can see the turret is moving. I will move that out of its range. So say this is the current target. The current target is going to leave. Can I drag this out on its own? Need more room. There we go. So this will leave its range, and when it leaves the range, you'll see that this will cancel the aim at, and when it cancels the aim at, it will begin to reset, but it will but because we have this end overlap, when it is overlapping, what it will do is go through and select a new target. Because it selects a new target, the resetting will cancel and begin aiming at the new target. So we'll see if this works. We'll drag this out. There, did you see that? It went to cancel, cancelled it through, and selected a new target. So now it's selected the green. So we'll move the green out, and now that the green's out, it has focused on the black. And I will move the black out, and it reset back to 0. So we'll move the black back in. It detects the overlap and begins looking. And then we move it out. It detects the overlap has finished, and it resets. And then we can drag these two back in, the other two back in. So these two have entered the range while it's already been looking at something else. They didn't all enter at the same time like before. Drag that one out, and it will pick the next one. Drag that one out, picks the next one. So that's it, I believe. I had a little bit of difficulty because I copied and pasted the tutorial turret. I should have just moved it, but I copied it, made a new copy of it, and because that the casting and the variables and those kinds of things in the turret and the target were wrong, because although they had the same name, they were a copy and essentially not the same blueprint. They had the same name, the same settings and everything, but they were looking for not looking for that. They were when I first started the video, had some difficulties, but hopefully I can edit that out and not have an issue. I will add my email address and other ways of contacting me to the end of this video. If you feel that you need to contact me for help or anything like that, I am more than happy to help. Please do keep in mind that I suffer from chronic fatigue, so I may not always be able to reply as quickly as you may expect. So thank you for your time, and I hope that this tutorial will help you guys out a little bit. Feel free to comment and let me know what you would like me to do after this. If I don't get any suggestions, I will probably go with creating a projectile and have the turrets firing. But I think that's it for now. Thank you very much, and I hope this helped. Bye!